Hey guys, Tim and Holly here again. Hello.
Hi.
So I was hoping that at this point I could kind of show you guys the digital version of Chess the Gathering, but it's taking a little bit longer than we thought because we're working part-time on it and all these other wonderful excuses. So I thought I'd go into one of the kind of interesting sort of design UI issues that Holly and I kind of had with the game. So to start with the paper prototype, we had chess-like pieces that moved in chess-like ways, and we had to modify them so that they would move in different ways and act differently. And the way that we solved that was with Legos, the way you solve all of life's problems. So basically, it was color. You'd have to memorize the color, but yellow would be one spell, red would be another, and it was really clear that, like, this guy is pretty pimpin' because he's got, like, double spellage going on, and this guy's got another spell that's different because it's a different color, and this guy's just... no one loves to cast spells on him. So we felt it was kind of an elegant solution that was modular and all that wonderful jazz. So we thought, all right, let's just throw that in the game. And so I started thinking about that. But then when I looked at the game itself, especially when you have a big board, right? Because you don't have 8x8. Here, this is an 8x8. And if you have a table and you make this huge board, you don't really kind of have to worry about it because our resolution on our eyes is great and you can see everything and move around the table. But when the board gets really big here and you only have so much resolution, I started worrying about if the angle got steep so that you could see what was stacked underneath them, because it gets hard to see the lines like of a diagonal movement or a straight movement. And it seemed like it was much easier to see it from here. And so I thought, hey, you know, maybe we could come with a top-down solution. So then I was like, hey, department.
Me.
Wife, why don't you go ahead and make that awesome? And so...
I think it was something about magic. You said, there's something about you and your magic. And
yeah.
Go do it.
Yeah, I don't really know how I convinced you to do this stuff. So anyway, so this is what Holly came up with, which is really rad. Why don't you talk about it?
Okay. Well, so looking at the board and knowing that we had to take a very kind of top-down view, our sort of natural, or at least my natural first thought was checker pieces, because that's how we're very used to seeing that, you know, kind of flat disc-like thing on a board. And since we were losing the ability to stack things vertically like we had in real life here with our Legos, we needed to be able to take that checker piece and add some information so that it wasn't just the icon of what kind of piece it was. So you were getting more than, oh, it's a bishop or a queen or a rook or whatever it is. You need to know that there's also a modified queen or rook or bishop. So I added an extra ring around the icon itself to leave room for our modifiers. So here we have basically trisected this ring, and we can put icons to indicate what spell or modifier the piece has.
Right. So kind of like a color with with a graphic, with
an icon.
A very simple icon because we don't have a lot of space.
Yeah.
Very little space here.
And it's gonna get smaller.
Right. And you can kind of see here from this. This yin-yang symbol is super simple and it reads, but then even when you add this fish icon, which I don't even think this camera's gonna pick up, things get really dicey really quickly. So when we kind of were throwing some of these things in the game, we started worrying a little bit, and I kind of missed our little stacking here.
I got really worried when you pointed out the yin-yang to me, and you're like, look how well that works. And I was like, it's a yin-yang. Like, it's a great icon. Yes. And it's like, sure, go make something like a yin-yang.
Right.
Make it like that.
Yeah, do that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, despite my reasonable request to my wife that she's acting like so unreasonable, so then I started thinking, like, all right, if we're top down, we only get the top, and if we're on the side, we only get the bottom, and so we're kind of losing half of the information each way we go. And so I started kind of looking around, thinking, like, was there possibly another option that we could go with? And so I started kind of looking at reference. And as I was going around, I was trying to look at something where there might be like a 3D board where they maybe got more information into that board by having 2D pieces. You can see here on Hero Academy, even though it's super small, they're basically cheating. A lot of them, what they would do is they would cheat. They would have the board drawn in perspective, but then the characters would be 2D, like billboards in what we call them in DreamWorks, where it's just like a 2D image that always faces the camera. And so the perspective is totally cheated, but your brain is okay with that. It's just kind of like, you know what, it looks okay. And so with that, suddenly we get this full image. If Holly made it, we'd have all the pixels to play with rather than worrying about what angle they were looking at it from. And I thought that was really cool. And so then I went back to Holly,
Art
hat in hand, art department, and I said, all right, let's do that.
And it was like, great, I just did all that work for nothing. Awesome.
It's a prototype.
Yeah. No, so then that actually freed up a lot of room for me to have some more fun, right? So instead of having it just be like 80 pixels worth of one icon with 10 pixels on the side for tiny little icons, I got a lot more space to play with here. So basically, kind of having these rings. So what it allowed me to have was width, which I didn't have before, and height, which I also didn't have before. So all I had before was enough room for one puny little icon that probably wouldn't even get to be this big. And now I just have a lot more space to play with, which is awesome. I also got the opportunity to make this feel a little bit more like a chess piece, which is just sexier than a checker piece. Chess is just cooler than checkers.
You're not going to tell them what you called it, are you?
I called them the cupcake toppers, because to me, when I look at this, even though it looks nothing like a cupcake, the thing on the top reminded me of when I was little and we would go, you get the little cupcake and there'd be like a little plastic clown face or whatever, flower number, whatever.
It's not a cupcake topper, everyone. This is some kind of deity that has been summoned to do battle and has been modified, given powers.
We have a kid, and I bake stuff now, so it reminded me of cupcakes.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, and then real quick, something that I also found really interesting is the whole color.
Color, oh yeah. Yeah, well, so like here with the Legos, we were relying solely on color. But what you get with that is something like Lego colors, which are very primary, they're very distinct, very easy to see, but it ends up looking like what I call a bag of Skittles, and I didn't want to have that kind of rainbow effect.
You did not call it a bag of Skittles. You said it would look like a
bag of Skittles threw up on our game.
Yes.
I think that's what I said. So I didn't want that because it's just...
Holly hates Skittle throw up.
I don't actually. Skittles are okay. I don't know. I like M&Ms. If I'm gonna have colored candy, it's gonna be chocolate.
Nice.
Anyway, it's candy that's designed for children. I mean, there's a level of sophistication that just isn't there. It's it's Skittles. Like that's not
right.
So I didn't want our game to come across as looking too kiddie. So I wanted to be able to keep a limited color palette. And we kind of knocked around with the idea of some Northwestern art influences. So I was really hoping to be able to stick with a color palette that was more sort of indigenous.
Another thing that you explained to me that I thought was pretty awesome is that like eventually, if we want this to be modular, we want to be able to have more modifiers on these things. We didn't want to just be like run through our colors and then use them up and be done.
Right.
And here's a great example where you're reusing red both times, but this one's red on red, this is red on black, and they look distinct enough even though they're both reusing.
Well, your eye kind of, your eye will, even at a distance, will sort of create another color out of it.
Right.
And it won't be, like bright orange or purple or, you'll kind of get it from here. Like you get to see that, okay, like there's some black and red in there.
I hope this shows up with this film, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like this one, okay, even at a small size, I might not be able to read the icon perfectly well, but I know it's a light blue thing on a darker blue background. And you'll be able to have references to it on the screen.
Right.
You'll be able to see the icons. So, what we're hoping to be able to do there is use iconography and color in combination to convey the information rather than just having a color. And clearly relying just on icons wasn't going to work because they're just too small.
Right. Yeah. And here you can kind of see that, this board, it's not an 8x8. This is like 2 boards merged together. So this is almost as far back as I would allow the camera to be. And you can still, read, well, we got to have higher contrast on that, and I'll show a version of that too, actually. But you can still read this piece and that there's stuff underneath it. Plus the fact that if someone casts one of these modifiers on it, you'll have known that. So you'll have this temporal knowledge of like pieces within the board and how they've become how they will. And then later on, we can always add that you click on it and, over by the side, you see all the modifiers on it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the goal was, I think the goal for me, having played a bunch of chess, was to be able to look and visually understand how each piece moves so that you can understand your strategy, because there's so much complexity that can go on in chess and strategic games that, like, you don't want to constantly have to be clicking to learn information. The goal would be to see as much of it as you can just from that shot. And of course, mileage may vary, when the board gets really big. We're just trying to do as good of a job.
But if you look at this piece here, like this piece, those are the same pieces, but if you look at them compared to any other piece on the board, you can clearly see the most information out of here. So like here, it's got the same information, but it's really hard to read. And these other pieces, they're only saying what the piece is,
nothing about
modifiers at all.
And just as a quick point, I was thinking about maybe doing that with animation. Like if it's a ricochet piece, just having him kind of bouncing around within the square. And if he's a wraparound, having him kind of like flicker in and out, like almost like he can teleport and stuff like that. The only thing is that I kind of want to save that for other things. Like maybe when you summon them, they have an animation like that on them so that people can see that, oh, this is a new piece on the board. Because you can play 4-player, and if all of a sudden, a bunch of people take their turns, it's nice to see, like, oh, here are the new pieces on the board, or something like that.
Yeah, I was also afraid that relying solely on animations for these modifiers would, like, it might make the piece look like it's having a little seizure. Right? Like,
yeah.
Because we talked about, it could float, it could twitch, it could, like, rotate around.
Right.
So you might end up just having the effect of looking like there's just a little possessed piece on your board. Especially if you've got multiple pieces like that.
The other problem is that if we have, like, as we expand modifiers, we have to come up with an animation for each one of those things.
And it's hard to have a natural or intuitive fit, I think, with all those animations.
Yeah,
they don't
because
necessarily make sense
if you cast, like, 3 modifiers that just happen to clash a little bit in the animation, it could just really be weird. Though I do think it would be awesome because you could visually see, like, that piece is this.
I think having a mix of them would be nice.
It might, that might be eventually.
Saving animations for modifiers where it really makes sense. Like, I don't know, say we had a piece that could fly.
Right.
We don't, but if we did, it could sit there and, like you talked about, having it maybe sort of hover above the board slowly.
Yeah. This is just real quick, another version that Holly did that reminds me of hockey for whatever reason. Probably because you put a little shading on there. It looks like a puck. And then this is it. We showed this one, right?
I don't know.
Oh God.
I don't remember.
This is real quick. This real quick is Holly's original cupcake. This is her original shot, and this is where those symbols come from, like the wavy and the infinite and stuff like that. You would hopefully associate those. These are basically the cards on the side that you could cast, and so hopefully you would start to associate, like, wrap around with the infinity symbol and ricochet with the the bounce off arrow kind of thing, and generic spell, whatever, with the wavy lines. And so then, like, when you saw them, you would immediately associate that. And the same thing with color, right? With the black and red versus the blue, like, you would kind of see that. And this is kind of a quick view of just comparing the different, mock-ups that we had. And then this is another just quick view of the piece with a little bit of higher contrast in there, sitting on the board. But yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we're basically trying to emulate a little bit of what we had here.
It's pretty close.
Yes! A little bit of what we had here. Skittle puke it. And then worry about not having an infinite eyeball resolution and being able to roam around the board and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's a prototype, so, we will, I'm really happy with at least what we have for the prototype, so that it's clear to people what they are and that they could play the game and get an idea if they
Yeah,
like
that's
it
the
or
most
not.
important part about the prototype is that you can play and that we get information about how people are playing and whether or not they even think the game is fun.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So before we invest years and years of time and money into making this game, we want to make sure that people actually want to play it.
Right, exactly.
So we just need to make something that they can play with.
Yeah. But not just something they can play with. We just want to hit that mark. I think there's that bar that we want to hit where it's like they're playing it and at least they're getting the gist of everything, and it's not the UI isn't just working against them so much that that's distracting them from the fun of the game. But yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks, guys, and hopefully next video it'll be like, oh, look, check this out, cool prototype. Unlikely.
Our playable prototype.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.